Hey, welcome in, frenemies. There's a different person sitting in the middle here. Chris has had some conflict of a schedule, but he'll be on the main podcast. So for 757 Talk, we're going to jump into just what's happened over the last few weeks. We didn't have an episode last week. Last you heard, I was kind of up at the top of the rankings. That's not the case anymore. I've slid down. Tim beat me this past week. The week before, I lost to Leroyce in a half-point loss, which still is stinging. Not fun. I was watching that Monday night game, just hoping somehow. It came down to, it was Melvin Gordon and Eckler. So I shouldn't have been in the game anyways, because they should have just outscored it and I wouldn't have had a chance. Mm-hmm. But Eckler caught one final pass to give him the final half point plus the yards to push him past me, and I lost on that last pass.
Yeah, but who saw that coming, really? I mean, for it to come down to the wire like that against what we thought was a bad Pittsburgh team, which, as a Pittsburgh homie, they're not as bad as we seem.
I know. I definitely thought there was going to be a lot more points scored by the Chargers in that game, but apparently getting Fitzpatrick from our Dolphins was a very helpful move.
So all of our listeners have been commenting a lot about my attire lately. So many comments, tons of comments. I was reading all of them the other day, so I feel it's appropriate at this point to let you guys know I'm an admissions counselor for psychology and counseling department.
It's like Andy Bernard.
That actually makes me semi-qualified as a psychologist, I hear. So if you need anything,
okay, I was wondering where we're going with this.
Yeah, I can ask things like, how does that make you feel, and what are your passions? And I'm just saying, if you need some,
I'll let you know, because it could get real bad quick here. If I fall out of this top 6, then I'm going to be in that bad place.
Well, as somebody who has been to rock bottom and currently lives in rock bottom, I know.
We'll get to that later in our power
I know
rankings.
how to cope. I have coping mechanisms that we can discuss.
All right, and then a shout out here. I wanted to shout out to Reverend David Kalana. He missed us last week, told us in the chat that he's looking forward to these episodes. So we're back, David. So check out this episode. All right, we're going to jump right into it. We're going to do mid-season power rankings. So previously we had done preseason power rankings. So just to update you guys on that, we had Phil 1, David 2, Joe third. Then we had Daniel, Ryan, me, Chris, Tim, Mike, Morgan, Andy, and Leroyce. So our biggest mistake here was Leroyce. He is 12th, and I believe he's currently second.
Which is awesome. By the way, we're all
congratulations, Leroyce. You've proven us very, very wrong, and you demolished me. Well, I guess didn't demolish me last week, but beat me last week.
He's put up some good games from some people we didn't quite expect to.
Yeah, I didn't.
They are.
I love it. I really didn't expect his team to perform as it has, but I think you've made it better by some of these trades we'll talk about later. So that's, I think, where we were probably the most wrong. We also had Ryan at 5. That's not looking so hot right now.
Dead wrong.
Yeah.
You were half right.
Are you last?
You were half right.
Yeah, you're last, aren't you?
Oh, wait, you weren't half right because it's a 12-person league.
So we were even more than half right. Wrong.
It's like 6% wrong. Numbers guy.
I think we're wrong.
What is it?
It's more than 50%.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go over what we think now at the midseason point, who we think going forward, headed to the playoffs, like what team is set up the best based on their rosters. So I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Timothy James over here. By the way, shout out, he's joining us on this episode. We got one of our
He's very
guest
attractive,
stars
very attractive man.
He is the Taj in our chats, and you still no pun intended as your team?
Oh, pun intended. I got rid of it now.
Oh, okay, so just pun intended.
Just pun intended.
Okay, you want the pun to be intended.
You want the punt.
Yeah. Very intentional with my puns, usually.
Understood.
Yeah, okay. I'm a big fan.
Okay.
All right, so go ahead and tell them who we had number 1.
So I think all of us have a consensus number 1. We're all a little bit intimidated by Joe with his voluminous running back committee. It's pretty hard to compete with that. You can kind of cover up a lot of mistakes otherwise with the rest of your team if you have the likes of Christian McCaffrey on your team. The way that he's producing this year just makes it, tough to kind of keep up with that. He's so far ahead of any other running back that just kind of makes that whole thing a little bit not fair. And then he follows it up with David Johnson and
that was what I was going to say. The one thing that could hurt him is if David Johnson actually does have more of a serious injury, then I wouldn't put him number one. But I think he'll be back in the next few weeks here. So
I think one of the things that really reinforced his number one position is Darren Waller at the tight end position.
Yeah.
Getting a quality guy off of the waivers at the tight end position where there's a bit of a desert. It's a huge pickup for him.
He's just as safe as it comes. He's getting insane targets.
He's getting a high volume of targets, and he's going to have a nice little fantasy floor for us. I think. I
still think you should accept my trade, Joe.
Oh, you got a trade out there?
I tried for Mr. Waller early on here.
Okay.
Was rejected.
Couldn't get Darren Waller. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then number 2 is actually playing him this week. Tim over here. That's at least who I have at number 2.
I had me down a little bit lower, but I'm happy for the praise.
So, I mean, honestly, if David Johnson is out a couple weeks, I would even consider putting you 1. So, Tim's got Saquon Barkley and Marlon Mack as his starting running backs. I'm thinking that's probably the best in the league that we have.
I think
as 2 starting running backs.
If I may.
Mm-hmm.
You may.
I think I weathered the storm quite nicely with Saquon being out for a couple of weeks, and I think that really kind of salvaged my season. I think that had the potential to wreck my season. Came out of it, I think, with only 1 loss.
He's also superhuman and somehow is back.
Which nobody's mad about that, at least especially me.
not you.
Yeah.
And then you traded for Edelman. I think that was a fantastic trade to the demise of Ryan's team.
Was it my demise?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were demising already, but you traded away.
He traded for upside.
DK has not quite been.
Yes. Yeah. So on the main podcast, we'll talk about a bet we had, and we got a payout coming at some point here for DK
Hint,
Metcalf.
I lost.
And I did trade for the future. I knew that Juju wasn't going to quite be as good this year, but I'm kind of biting my tongue a little bit with trading.
Yeah, but when you're looking at your wide receiver 2 or 3, Juju's fine. He's not going to be that wide receiver 1 this year, but he'll give you a solid.
And for how bad Chicago's offense has been, Allen Robinson's still a stud.
No,
think about how good that guy could be if
he's a regret that I had in draft season. I kind of wanted to get him, but I just didn't reach high enough. All right, and then we'll move on to our next team here, which is I lost my spot.
So I have Phil ranked ahead of me in the power rankings. I think his team is kind of coming along nicely. I think he was a little bit kind of questionable there earlier in the season, but I think it's kind of hitting its stride right now. I think he's picked up a couple good, free agent acquisitions here. With Marvin Jones exploding last week, I do think he'll continue to see a higher target share there. But Aaron Jones is playing well. If the Vikings' offensive pass game continues, Stephon Diggs there is going to be huge. So
yeah.
The one thing for him is Kamara. Can he stay healthy? Is he healthy? They have a timely bye week coming up, so that'll go a long way.
Yeah, and then Breeze will be back, so I think he's really that's why I think he should be ranked so high up here.
Yep.
Projecting forward, I think he'll have a pretty solid team. Just an aside here, because I was looking up your roster, Phil. It's not your fault; it's Chris's fault. Shout out to Chris. You should change your name because it's so annoying because I always think Phil is in the chat and it's not Phil, it's Phil's mentor. And I don't if you experience this, because over and over again, I think it's Phil saying something and then I go in there and I'm like, oh, wait a second. That's Phil's mentor, which is Chris.
That can still be your team name, but
maybe it needs to change. Yeah, because that's what we get notifications as to when his username is at Phil's mentor. So Chris, change that, please. It's annoying the crap out of me. All right, and then we have me at 4, so I won't talk about myself if you want to take this one, Tim.
Yeah, I think overall, obviously started the season very well. A little bit of some questionable things coming up. I think, Tevin Coleman really stepping up for you has been a big, getting that RB2 position kind of locked up a little bit has been super helpful. You're kind of playing the backup running back lottery on your bench. You're just hoping that somebody takes a tumble.
I've been doing it all season. Doing it all season.
Tim used to pray for people to take tumbles.
From the medical standpoint, I don't do that anymore. But I do understand, playing that strategy.
So my roster has actually changed quite a bit. We had a big waiver this past week, and I spent, I think, a combined like 115 of my 200 fab, basically putting me with $8 left. So I have almost nothing left to pick up Kenny Stills and Ty Johnson, who is the replacement for Kerryon Johnson.
I think both of those are going to be great pickups.
So I think that really helped my depth. Like that's what I just did not feel good about my running back depth, and that's why I really thought I had to buy into Ty Johnson. So I think that helped me. Obviously, Dalvin Cook this year has been on fire, and that's what's really.
I think you're the only one that really saw that coming.
Yeah, I was
absolutely.
I was not high on Dalvin Cook.
I was a little afraid of the injury stuff, but I mean, it could still happen, and that's why. Oh, I wanted to say, Daniel, thank you for finally dropping Alexander Madison because I've been wanting to text you to trade you, but I was like, if I just wait another week, he'll drop him. Took till last week, but you dropped him, and now he's on my team. So I feel a lot safer with that Dalvin Cook now because he'll slide right in, and I think he'll be pretty close to what Dalvin Cook even was. All right, so then we'll move on here to our number 5 team.
Daniel right now is driving to work going, ah!
Well, it's a better handcuff position for Sean to be in. It wasn't great value for Daniel to hold on to.
I love that stuff.
He played the lottery for 6 weeks and decided it was time to cash in.
I love playing the lottery, especially in other people's players.
So at number 5 here, we're still disrespecting the man, I think, because he's at 5. He's actually number 2 in the rankings, Leroyce. We had you at 12. We've moved you all the way up to 5, but you'll have to let us know what you think of this 5th ranking.
Well, here, let's defend ourselves a little bit about why we have him at 5. Because I agree, his team is a little bit better. I'm a little bit concerned about the future.
Okay.
I'm looking at Nick Chubb with Kareem Hunt coming back. That's a lot of unknown.
He's jumped in the chat there saying he wants to trade him, and we all are aware that Kareem Hunt's coming back, so he's probably not getting the value.
And then he's got another shared backfield of Eckler and Melvin Gordon, which has not planned out. I don't think they're. Neither one of them is.
It's looking like it's going to be murky.
Yeah, with Austin Eckler being basically a top 3 running back to start the season, he takes a huge hit, and he doesn't get the value back with Gordon that he maybe had before. So I think that's more of a step back than it is a gain for him. Mike Evans has been up and down all year.
You said Austin Hooper. You meant Hunter Henry, right?
No, I said Melvin Gordon, didn't I?
Oh, okay.
Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler. I think me trading Austin Hooper to him was a great addition for him. I didn't quite believe he was going to be a top 3 tight end all year, but
it's looking like he'll be at least top 5.
Yep.
Well, I guess we'll see with the Matt Ryan thing. If that's a significant injury, it might.
And Amari Cooper has been a stud, so he's got good pieces. Yeah. There's just a lot of question marks moving forward about how his team is going to look.
I think he's just straight solid across the board. Like he doesn't have any super weak winners, but he's got a team that's going to put up a lot of points every week.
He's got a great baseline.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and then number 6 here, Chris. So he's not here to defend himself, but we have put him all the way down to the 6. I think the Patrick Mahomes thing, that really hurt him because he was a huge staple of trying to get a bunch of points every week for his team. Although he's already practicing, you said, Tim?
Yeah, so he practiced in a limited way. They have not ruled him out for Sunday.
What in the world?
That's crazy. Yeah. What the heck? I mean, he was walking on it without a limp once they popped it back in.
If you watch, Stefania Bell talk on, so she's a PT, she's got her OCS as well, which is an orthopedic specialty. But she talks a lot about how as soon as you reduce that patella, get it back into place, it alleviates a lot of the discomfort immediately. And then we're just dealing with some effusion, some bruising,
and he didn't tear anything,
and some swelling. So. Right, so that's what you look for. You look for any sort of avulsion fracture or compression fractures. You look for any sort of ligament damage, and it seems like he avoided all of that sort of stuff. So at that point, it's really just managing the pain, making sure his patella is stable. So he'll come out in a brace probably for the foreseeable future, just kind of guiding that patella into place. So.
Oh my gosh. This is why I wanted you on this podcast so bad.
I know. I was thinking the whole time.
How cool
we
that
This
sounded?
for the main podcast.
I was
Hold on.
Well, yeah. So I started a new job. Got to get my schedule locked down, and then I'm all over the place.
Maybe we'll get him in here another time. But all right, so we're talking about Chris's team here. So he's got Todd Gurley, he's got a risky team in my opinion. That's his is a pretty high risk team.
Sure.
Todd Gurley could go down at any moment. Matt Breida is kind of you don't know whether it's going to be.
He's a home run hitter. Yeah.
Yeah. If he doesn't get that big play, he's more of a 5 to 10 point.
He goes from
Matt
Breida to Mac Pita.
I don't like that.
No.
Okay,
you can do better than that.
Well,
McLaurin's been good. He's just not.
He's a big surprise. I mean, he's a good find. He pairs that with Chris Godwin, who I think has lived up to all the expectation that's out there. So
that's where his team I think is most solid.
If he had missed on that, his team would have not looked quite as nice.
Yep, and then really I think the biggest hole for him is tight end. He's sporting Greg Olsen right now, so that's kind of gross. And that's
gross
what might
about
cost
Greg
him.
Olsen?
I mean, he's a beautiful man. I'm not saying I'm not disparaging his looks at all.
He's got a limited ceiling though.
He's getting old. He's got some old legs.
He's in the booth. He was in the booth this past week.
That's true. He was in the booth. All right, and then moving on, we got at 7 we have David. I actually like his team quite a bit, just because. I mean, when you got Zeke, holding down the fort for you. He picked up, that was a big pickup, getting Hunter Henry. I mean, that's going to be a
big
solid.
for it, and then he benched him and didn't get the reward on that.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's because it was his first week back. Nobody was quite sure what he was going to get. So, and then he's got Sony Michel, who's looking like it's starting to come on, and they're going to start using him. As it gets colder, I think New England's going to start running the ball more.
They always do.
We're going to see more Sony Michel, so that's, I think, going to only bode well for him trying to get into the playoffs. And then I guess quarterback's kind of one of his weak points. Matt Ryan went down on him. That kind of sucks. So he's having to play Matthew Stafford, which isn't, I don't think that's a bad replacement for it. Oh, the big thing he's missing is Devontae Adams.
Yeah, that hurts a lot.
I know you're not enjoying this at all, David. As you said, they told me 1 week, and it's not been 1 week.
Yeah, well, turf toe is really hard, and this is something that
Tim,
plagues.
can you explain that? Turf toe?
Because
seriously, I've been so curious about turf toe.
Yeah, so it involves your big toe.
Okay.
Usually what happens is as your foot is planted, your toes are flexed, and then a big force kind of comes and forces that big toe into some excessive extension. So it actually tears the ligament on the bottom of your toe, and it's very painful because if you know this, as you walk, your toe bends quite a bit. If you're running and sprinting, even more so. So it's an injury that kind of plagues people for a little bit longer than you kind of hope for.
Especially athletes that are running on it all the time.
And a la AJ Green of last year. I mean, this is something that he's been dealing with for a while. I don't think it's his current injury, but this is something that can kind of last for a while. And it could, he could come back and play a couple snaps, and then somebody just lands on him again one time, and it could have the potential to kind of wash a season. Maybe not exclude him entirely, but
Yep.
So if you go down with turf toe, ideally, how long would you have to recover?
I mean, 6 weeks is
minimum.
Is a soft tissue time frame, so
Okay.
They can accelerate that timeline a little bit with the the
whatever the heck they're putting in.
Yeah, I mean they can do all their injections.
Well, that and it's
do what injections?
I may be wrong about this, but isn't it? It's not like a huge re-injury risk, right? It's more of a pain thing.
It's a pain threshold, but I would say there is a little bit of a re-injury.
So there is,
yeah,
okay.
Just because ligament as it heals, it's not quite as pliable as movable as a.
That's why they need that full off season to really get fully out.
You can have potential for scar tissue there, and that's just not as strong.
So it's like you sprinted too fast, you landed on it too hard. Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, usually
it's usually like jumping. I think.
Yeah, if you watched like AJ Green last year, you try to come back, and then it didn't look like he did anything in particular, but sometimes it is just kind of that plant and push, and all of a sudden, ouch.
Okay.
Yep. So, and Joe can always call me out if I don't know what I'm talking about because he's an ATC. I respect that.
He loves it.
He's got a lot of on-field experience.
All right, then at number 8 we have.
I like turtles.
Tidewater Turtles, Daniel. So I think we got him ranked fairly high. I mean, you think he's 11th in the league right now? But his team, I just don't understand how he keeps losing. Like, his team doesn't really look that bad.
He's got to be frustrated.
Yeah, because he's got Chris Carson, DeAndre Hopkins, Cooper Kupp. I mean, that is a great core sitting right there. And then Joe Mixon's been a disappointment. I think he can maybe turn it around if they can start to figure out, they should be passing the ball to him. I don't understand why he's not being involved in the passing game. He's a great receiving back. Ebron at tight end, that's kind of rough. But he
gets his though. He does score touchdowns.
Yeah, his bench isn't too bad. He's got Scantling, who went off last week. He's got Miles Sanders, who's a rookie that I like. I'm not sure if it's going to happen this year, but I think he's got good potential for the future. So I just think he'll outperform where he is now. I see Daniel finishing more in this 8 to 10 range instead of.
He's got
at the
Mark
bottom.
Andrews at tight end too.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So he didn't start him. Yeah,
he's on bye this week. That's why. He's
Gotcha. Yep. So that's Daniel's team, and then we have Andy. So for those of you that haven't heard your name yet, I'm sorry, but you are further down this list, including.
I haven't heard my name yet.
I think we all know where you are, bud.
So Andy's one that I think he a little overperformed too, because I didn't think his team was really that good. It's actually this week really looked up.
Yeah, he's got the trades that kind of went through, and we talked to this about on the main podcast a little bit as all the recent trades.
Yeah,
and their kind of fantasy relevance. But Andy really benefits kind of on both ways from that Emmanuel Sanders trade.
Yep,
because he had both of those receivers, Sutton and Emmanuel Sanders. So. He has the potential to really benefit from on both ends of that.
And then he's got Michael Thomas, who's just been a steady Eddie, man. He's going to be a wide receiver one pretty much every week for you. Yeah, I mean, McCoy, that's the murky situation. We'll get into his other part when we talk about Mike's team. And then Philip Lindsay actually surprised me. I thought that was one that I did not see him.
He's fallen off a
winning the
little
job
bit from
back.
last year, but he's still put up consistent numbers.
They've been able to run the ball a lot better than I thought. I thought that you wouldn't. I thought there'd be this 50-50 split, which there is, but it's looking like you can actually play them both. Like they're both usable running backs.
Oh, and he also has Sanu, so he benefited. All
right.
three players.
He was the trade man here.
he must have been reading
this
the news
week's trades were
very happy,
very good for him. All right, and then we have Morgan. Oh, you talk about my fall. Morgan's fall has been very far.
That one hurts. I was rooting for Morgan.
He was undefeated, I think, 3 weeks in.
Yep.
And then since then, he has not won and has not scored much over 100 points in many of these weeks.
4 straight losses.
There's been considerably less trash talk in the chat.
So he's been less active in the chat, that's for sure. So jump in there, Morgan. You can still be in there even if you're sitting at the bottoms.
Yeah.
The big thing that hurt him, obviously, on the main podcast we talked about, Kerryon Johnson. That sucks, man. I mean, he was definitely a good weekly starter for you. He wasn't really living up to the hype that I thought he would, but he was at least getting enough work that you could plug him in every week. You slept on the waivers there because I really thought he was going to try to get Ty Johnson out from under me, but apparently spending 77 fab is enough to get things done.
And he doesn't really have the depth to kind of back that up, so I see a slide.
Yep.
More of a slide than what's already.
All right, and then we have Mike here. This might look like a bit of a snub here because he's a little higher in our actual standings. But I don't know. I'm very scared for this team. It's just Leonard Fournette to me is your one stabilizing force, but then you're basically putting your faith in these Jaguars, and I'm not sure that offense is one that you want to have that much faith in. He's got D.D. Westbrook and DJ Chark as his wide receivers.
Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew. Nick Foles, I think I saw a report he's starting to practice again. Yep. So that could change things.
Sucks when you go away and then some dude with some magical enchanted mustache comes in and starts playing like.
I feel like Nick Foles
he's been brought down to earth a little bit the last 2 weeks. He hasn't played so well, but definitely not a Tom Brady level.
And then he's got his. For those of you who don't know, this man called him the next Tom Brady, so we'll continue to monitor that throughout.
I get it. He's handsome. He's got a brilliant mustache, but
I stand by my reporting.
Yeah. The other thing that kind of plagues Mike, and I think we kind of talked about it already, is Adam Thielen being out the hamstring. It says he avoided any sort of major issue, but hamstrings kind of have a tendency to not go away.
Yeah, that could nag.
And then same thing kind of with Will Fuller. So that's kind of damaging.
I'm more
his
afraid
depth
of
there.
him.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you my definition of a hamstring tear, and you can tell me how close I am.
Sure.
So like a turf toe, it kind of like stretches it. It's kind of like the whole hamstring is like one big toe.
I'll be honest, I don't like that analogy.
And then when you
it's not
dig
wrong,
in
though,
too
right?
hard and it stretches too far and it rips kind of right in the bosom, not the bosom, the booty area and a little below there.
I'm just confused on where we're going with this.
Kind of hamstring,
These
just
are
kind of
high-class technical
this is the
terms.
hamstring, and I just ran a little too fast, a little too hard, and now my booty kind of tore under me. How would you rank mine?
I don't like it. I mean, so yes, more or less, yes, there is some tearing involved. I think you got that, that part right.
The tearing, you were right.
Yeah.
In a hamstring tear, there is tearing.
The hamstring is pulled.
Correct.
Okay.
That's always something I've wondered, actually, is the difference. Now, I think when you pull your hamstring, don't you technically tear it, though?
Yes.
Okay. It's just when they say you tear your
So
hamstring.
there are 3 grades to strains, right? So there's a grade 1, which is your AKA pulled hamstring.
I'm going to take a wild guess that
Pretty
the next
uncomfortable.
is
But anytime there's a strain
2.
of a sort, you're going to have some sort of tearing. It'll be micro tearing, whatever it is. But
That's what I tell people when I pull something and I'm in a lot of pain. I'm like, it's torn. I should be in pain.
yeah,
What's the next? I'm going to give a
the
guess.
next one? A grade dose. Yep. Yep, for all my Spanish speakers out there. Grade 2. That one's a little bit more severe. Typically, you have some more substantial tearing, and then the grade 3 is complete tear.
Okay.
That's the one you don't
want to
have. One. Yeah. So grade 2 can be pretty devastating
Don't
too.
you have to like stretch it back out and sew it, or how?
It depends. Like if you tear your biceps, your biceps tendon, that can kind of roll up on there.
Ugh.
Same thing with your Achilles
A
tendon.
friend of mine had that happen. Yeah, that's
that
pleasant.
sounds-
Get a nice little ball, a little Popeye going on.
No fun.
Yeah.
All right, and then we're going to make our way to the very bottom of the league, and maybe we'll let the man talk about it himself, but we've got Ryan
I'd love to.
down at the bottom, so just, I don't know if you're going to defend yourself or you're just going to lean into this.
I could be a victim. I could be bitter, or I could be better.
Bitter or better? I like that.
Yeah. My guys.
I don't think you're going to be better, but go ahead.
My guys, as a person, this could
Okay.
make me or break me type of thing, or that kind
That
of
is
stuff.
ugly.
I got you.
I just looked at your team again. I kind of forgot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I forgive you. So I drafted people that
Are sucking.
have not played football well.
That's a fair assessment.
That's astute.
Yep. All right, and I think that's all we need to say about your dumpster fire of a team this year. So he's got Gardner Minshew, Giovanni Bernard starting for him.
Dude, that's my off week team, man. That's my bye week team. You can't do that to me.
Okay, he got Le'Veon. He's got Le'Veon.
Le'Veon.
So that's about all.
He's got James Conner coming back against
James
the Dolphins
Conner.
this week.
I still like my team. I don't understand. Honestly, I don't understand.
I just feel like your bench is very scary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
live
before
by the
we
sword, die by the sledgehammer. That's what's
but
happening.
before we finish, I need to give you my power rankings.
You're welcome for
1
Jimmy
to
Graham,
10.
by the way.
Yeah,
It's a
thank
great
you.
pickup.
My power rankings are 1 Joe, 2 Leroyce, 3 Phil, 4 Tim, 5 Sean, 6 David, 7 Chris, 8 Mike, 9 Morgan, 10 Andy, 11 Daniel, 12 Ryan.
So in case you're
Which
not
are
watching,
the actual rankings.
I was gonna say if you're not watching the YouTube, he was reading off of his phone our standings. So
which is the actual only rankings.
these are
Anyways,
power rankings. We're projecting, Ryan.
we're making content. Understood.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much all we had
Like,
for you
this
guys.
is what's actually happening, but we know better than what's actually happening.
Exactly. We know
Okay.
better than what's actually happening.
Understood.
That's
Did
why
you-
that's why we have a podcast, because we feel like we know what's going on.
Did you want to
right?
talk trades?
We'll talk a little bit of the trades. We had some trade reviews here. I know you wanted a little bit of input on yours.
I was intrigued.
why don't you present your trade?
Yeah, so I traded.
This was like 3 weeks ago?
This was several weeks ago. Yeah, I traded Leroyce, Austin Hooper, Wayne Gallman after week 1 of Saquon Barkley's injury.
Yep.
He was kind of a throw
Which
in
was
there.
a hamstring.
Yep.
No. And then Marquise Brown, who's been good, but he's also been banged up a little bit lately.
was
And
an
I received Juju and Debo Samuel on my end. So I was kind of thinking on the future. I can kind of explain myself what I was thinking. I was thinking.
Well, what better chance than
yeah,
on
I mean,
this
to me-
podcast
To me, this
explain.
is really Hooper for Juju.
Yeah, in
The
my mind,
rest
yeah.
are throw-ins.
And who knew that Hooper
You have
would
Kelsey.
continue to produce at this level? I had Kelsey. He's vastly unproduced.
I wanted
in my
you to play
opinion.
2 tight ends like the old days.
He's kind of wishing.
I wish I had kept it, honestly. I still think Juju can kind of turn it on a little bit towards the end of the
He'll be
season.
good.
Yeah. But I did trade for the keeper value in that. I wanted the option of having Juju and Kelsey and Barkley.
You want the Steelers' number 1 receiver. Like, that is a thing.
Yeah.
Like, you do want him.
Ben is going to
if
come
they
back
can get
next year, and
although what's his name was not bad, right?
Mason Rudolph has not been bad.
No, the back, but Dobbs. He played
Delvin
pretty,
Hodges.
or Hodges. That's what it was.
Dobbs.
No, they had Dobbs and they traded Dobbs.
He's
Sorry.
at Jaguars now. Yeah, I mean he managed the game well enough. He could have had a big touchdown, I think, in that game against San Diego. That was probably underthrown by
I don't
about
know.
15 yards, but
I'm not a Mason Rudolph fan. I'm want that on record. I think
that's fair.
I don't know.
I think he'll be better than half the league.
Is it the name?
you think you're better than half the league.
Yeah.
I think he's more of a 20 to 30 to back up. I think he'll be a career backup.
I think
I think you
he's
guys
gonna
need to look
benefit-
for a quarterback in the draft,
which is
what I-
disappointing. So we just traded away probably the best pick we'll have in years. But I do think not having the first team reps coming out of that, I think you can kind of play a lot of catch up. I think coming into the bye, is going to be huge for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the second half of the season for them, I do think he'll be less of a dump off guy.
I mean,
He'll
to be
stretch
fair to
field
him,
a
the
bit more.
coaches haven't really given the opportunity to show us what he
Right.
might have because they've completely game planned it to just dump it off. We don't want you to lose the game.
Their scheme
for
has
us.
been pretty bad. They're really trying to cover up some of the deficits there. But
Yeah. All right, and then another trade we had was with me. I traded Malcolm Brown. This was 2 weeks ago when Todd Gurley did not play the game. And it's funny, the story behind this one. So Chris had Devin Singletary and I had Malcolm Brown. So early in the week before Todd Gurley's injury was even popped up, there was no injury report until like the later in the week. All of a sudden Todd Gurley had this, is it a thigh bruise or something? Or I forget what it was. But anyways, he popped up on the thing. Before he had popped up, I sent him a trade offer and I was like, hey, you've been wanting your handcuffing Malcolm Brown. Singletary's on bye this week. He hasn't been really he only has like 10 carries on the whole season or something. So I was like, why don't you do that? And he was like, I'm good. Nope. And then then the news came out. Todd Gurley was injured and not going to play this week. So then I hit up Chris and I was like, hey, kind of wishing you took that trade. And he was like, maybe. And then about 2 hours later, he said, "So, is this still on the table?" So I think for my team, it was a win because I was just sitting there waiting for that lottery with Malcolm Brown. I was a little concerned about Darrell Henderson coming in. And then Devin Singletary's kind of I wanted to have that rookie ticket, in case.
He's a high upside kind of waiver stash.
If he can get things going, I think that offense wants to run the ball. If he can overtake Frank Gore, then I think I have some pretty good running back depth there. So I feel like I won this trade. But the big thing that happened was Malcolm Brown got hurt, so it kind of tanked his side of the trade. And then I picked up Darrell
left in the season, so a lot can happen.
Yeah. I picked up Darrell Henderson, so now I have Darrell Henderson who's looking more like he might be the handcuff. So, Chris, if you want to trade for your handcuff, I have your handcuff.
That's just mean.
All right, and then our last trade here was between Leroyce and Mike. This was probably the biggest trade we've had of the season. So we had Mike sending over Melvin Gordon and Tyler Lockett, and a little just background for that. Leroyce has Austin Eckler, so he was either probably going to try to trade away Eckler or try to get Gordon, as Gordon's now starting to take more of the work. And then he traded away DJ Chark, Jordan Howard, and Evan Ingram. So it was a 3-for-2. I honestly think Leroyce won this trade. I think it's fairly fair. It's not like a landslide win, but...
Well, Tyler Lockett is a top 10 receiver right now.
Exactly. I think that...
DK should be a top 10 receiver.
DK. So... DJ, this actually is DJ Chark. I think that he's not just a flash in the pan, but I think he finishes as a high-end wide receiver 2, not a wide receiver 1. And I think Lockett can keep it up because Russell Wilson's playing out of his mind, minus this past week, which was gross and lost me a league because I had Russell Wilson and it sucked. But they're a really well-running offense, and he's getting like all the targets. Tyler Lockett is. So he's the only guy in town, and I think he'll just sustain that. And then Melvin Gordon, we'll see. I'm a little afraid of what how
Mike really needs Evan Ingram to play like a top 5 tight end for that trade to really be good. I mean, Jordan Howard has been Jordan Howard. I mean, he has got good games. He's gotten to the end zone. I think
he's a guy that on a bye week you can put him in and hope he gets a touchdown. That's
DJ Chark has been pretty consistent. So.
All right, well, we went a little bit long this week, but we wanted to get into some of those trades and give you guys some ammo to come at us for our power rankings. Don't worry about going after Ryan because he just read off the standings. So
I mean, if you're still...
pretty much be and Tim that you'll be...
I think we had a general consensus. So.
Yeah. You got to agree with this. Come on. Morgan, you know how bad it is. All right. We'll see you guys.
Deuces.